diversity of age, everything has changed and rather rapidly. And in order, from my perspective, in order to keep up with that, we need to have people who are being very aware of and bringing to our attention what is different about the community than it used to be and what we have to offer everybody. We didn't have to used to have to think about that as much as we do now.
Yep. That's all I have.
All right. Well, again, we appreciate you taking the time to come. After we finish the interviews next Monday, we will certainly get information out to everyone so they know what their status is, and then look very forward to beginning of next year when we hope to hold the first meeting in January.
Perfect. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Kathy, isn't it time for you to take your break?
You're right.
The next candidate that we'd be interviewing is Diana Longry.
We need a minute, though.
Hello, Ms. Longry. How are you this evening?
I'm doing great.
Give me just a moment to finish some notes. So, the format, I'm sure you're familiar with it. We have 5 questions that we'll be asking that are the formal questions. And Mr. Antonin will actually be asking one of them. Councilmember Nephew, because he has a close relative that's an applicant, decided that he would not take part in order to not taint the pool. And so each council member will have a question. Mr. Antonin will, but of course only the 4 council members will be casting the votes in the end.
Okay.
And then just as normal, if we get wrapped up and have some extra time, if you have some questions for us, or we might have some follow-up questions, we'll do that.
Okay.
All right. Mr. Antonin is the first question.
Thank you. Please explain any background and or experience that you may have had in any of the following areas: public housing, civil rights, veterans issues, education, employment, or social work.
Okay, well, good. Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Diana Longry, live at 1771 Burr Street. Some of my background, of course, I am an attorney. I practice here in Maplewood, 1321 Frost. Now, of course, I have a general practice, so that gives me an opportunity to work in many of the areas that you just set out. But first of all, I want to also tell you a little bit about housing law. While I was working for the Target Corporation in commercial real estate, I volunteered numerous years for Volunteer Lawyers Network. And of course, one of the areas that they focus on is indeed landlord-tenant law and helping those individuals who are having problems with their landlords and how to take care of some of their housing issues that they may have. And of course, I did some time with working with cases with Volunteer Lawyers Network. I served on their executive board and also was on their board of directors, I think for maybe 6 years. With regard to employment law, I've got a number of clients of mine who are small businesses that I've helped with looking and revising their employee handbook and helping them to understand what some of the laws might be with regard to discrimination in the workplace and understanding what is okay and what is not okay. I've also represented a number of clients who have had EEOC claims as well. Now, with regard to some of the other issues that you've talked about, certainly with veterans issues, I can't say that I've specifically addressed any of those issues, but I believe I'm a quick study and that I probably wouldn't have much trouble in trying to figure out exactly how we can help those veterans who are in our community. And what were some of the other areas that you mentioned?
social work?
Social work. Well, probably 50% of my practice is in family law. And while that isn't specifically social work, it certainly does involve working with families who are under distress and in distress. And I think that many of the skill sets that you would find in somebody practicing in the area of family law would be exactly the same skill set you would find in somebody who, of course, is involved in a social work area as well.
Thank you.
Can you try my, no. We're having mic problems.
Okay.
My question is, what training or life experience, maybe an example, do you have that that would be beneficial if you are appointed to serve on the Human Rights Commission?
Well, I would say that I think there's a couple of different things that come to mind. One, of course, I've already talked about my legal background. But also I would say about my personal background. At a very young age, I contracted juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And I can tell you that children on the playground can be some of the most mean-spirited people you might come across. They don't mean it, but they just can't help it. And so, of course, in my lifetime, I have come across a number of bullies. And I, as a result, have come to the feeling that it is important to defend the little guy and allow the little guy an opportunity to speak and to be heard. And probably that's perhaps some of the reason that I'm an attorney today, because many times I find myself being the voice for those who cannot speak up, who cannot speak out, who do not know how to say what they want to tell others. And so that's what I do. And I think that those life experiences certainly would come to play in all of this.
What do you think would be the major challenges in reestablishing the Human Rights Commission in Maplewood?
You know, I've given some thought to that because, first of all, you have to understand what is the goal and the mission of this particular commission. Now, if citizens think that the goal or the mission of this commission is indeed overlapping with those missions and the duties of other either federal or state or county agencies, citizens might get confused, and then the problem for the city will be is that citizens might come here first and think that they're going to get their issues resolved, not knowing that the clock is ticking on their statute of limitations. And they may miss their statute of limitations when they thought that they were really taking care of those things. Because there are time limits that if you feel that somehow or other you've been discriminated against in the workplace or in other situations, there are indeed statutes of limitations. And if the citizens came here thinking that this is their court of resort, then that might cause a problem. The other thing that I'm thinking about is that, let's say that the mission is actually something different than that. That it's not to overlap what the other organizations and agencies who are set up specifically to be the enforcer and investigator for these kinds of things. Let's say that we really are looking to outreach to our diverse communities of different ethnic backgrounds. I think the biggest hurdle then is to say, how are we going to open up that communication so that they feel comfortable in speaking with us? Because here's something that I could see that this commission might do. Let's say we have a number of diverse communities, ethnic communities within Maplewood, whether or not they be Somali, or they be Hmong, or they be from various areas of Africa. All areas that have been worn, torn, that have been indeed areas where civil rights and human rights have been smashed into the ground. But here they've come here for new opportunity, to feel welcomed. But perhaps the folks who have lived here all their life, like many of us, we don't know or understand that challenge to civil rights that their family, their heritage, their ethnic community has faced. And so maybe what this commission can do is reach out to those ethnic communities within Maplewood, find out what are some of their stories that they bring back from their countries. Share those stories of how human rights and civil rights have been basically non-existent in those countries, and bring that awareness to the citizens here of Maplewood, so that that way we can better understand each other, if indeed that's what we're trying to do, is to address diversity and to have a more welcoming community for everybody, not just the white dudes.
Thank you. As a commissioner, you could be involved in facilitating issues that may arise between individuals and/or businesses in the community regarding housing, employment, public accommodations, and/or services. What experiences and skills qualify you to perform this task?
Well, I think that anybody who's ever been in a knockdown, drag-out, divorce case every other week, because that's what your business, that's the business you're in, you have to be able to talk to people to understand what their issues are, to be able to understand where two people are from two different universes, try to find some kind of common ground, especially if you're trying to at least keep some kind of a building relationship between those two entities. And the reason I bring up family law is commonly what the two parties are fighting about are the kids, okay? And they have to have some kind of a relationship in order to be able to continue to parent those children until those children are of age and on their own. And so even though you may have a knockout, drag-out type of divorce situation, as an attorney, you still need to try to help them come to some common ground, so that that way, in the end, they still can be the parents they need to be for their children. Well, if you have a dispute in the community, it could be much the same, because people have to remain living together. The business owner is there in the community. Perhaps the neighbor that they're having a problem with the fence and the semi-trucks and whatever that's going through there, maybe there hasn't been enough communication about that particular issue. And I think you all folks probably know what that issue that is. I'm using as an example. But I think just hopefully that gives you a perspective of what I could do on this commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also a life experience question, but broaden it a little. Based on your life experience and your understanding of the mission of this commission, if you had the opportunity to set one goal or one major program for this commission, what would it be?
What I think should be included, besides outreach to our ethnic communities and helping to communicate the concerns about human rights that they've experienced in their countries and why it is hopefully better here, and so that we all understand the different perspectives. The other thing that I think that should be included with this commission is that those folks in our community that for some reason feel that maybe they have been somehow not treated as they should have been, either by a police officer or in some kind of incident such as that, that they could then bring their concern to this commission as if, for at least to have it to be heard. And that could possibly alleviate some miscommunication between citizens and how maybe they felt that they were treated by the police, so that that way it may alleviate other issues in the future, either legal issues, or certainly open up communications so that citizens feel that if they feel that they have had a problem with the police, that they've got recourse to come to some body, some board, someplace, and to be able to talk about that concern. Thank you.
Those are the 5 formal questions. Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask of us?
Yeah, well, one thing I did want to take a look, because I was trying to remember some of the details about when this commission last